Welcome back to Passions Over Pancakes. My name is Hannah. I am the creator and the host of this podcast, a project in which I have conversations with people while we eat pancakes. So buckle in. Today is going to be a fantastic episode with my friend Boston, and we're going to be learning all about acting, how he got into acting, his advice for aspiring actors. We're going to introduce a lightning round. It's just going to be overall a wonderful episode. And if you are an aspiring actor, please stay to the end. This is a much shorter episode than we have done in the past, and I guarantee that you're going to glean a lot of good information from Boston. While I have you here in the beginning of the episode, if you wouldn't mind clicking that subscribe button or follow button, whichever platform you're on, there should be a way to go ahead and follow the rest of this podcasting journey with me. And I would so appreciate it if you would just take a second to do that. And if you feel so inclined at the end of the episode, feel free to please leave a thumbs up or a good review of this podcast. It means the absolute world to me. It takes just a couple of seconds, and it truly does help build this podcast in ways that you will never truly be able to understand. And I am just so grateful for each one of you who takes just a couple of seconds to do those things. It really makes a world of a difference, truly more of a difference than, again, you will ever know. With all that out of the way, today's guest is my friend Boston, and Boston is one of those people that once you meet him, you really just have a better life. He really just brightens up any room that he walks into. He makes friends with everybody that he sees, and he is just somebody that is so inspirational, especially on the stage. So Boston is an actor, a screenplay writer, and he's a comedian. He's an improv genius, and he just does so many cool things in the creative space, a lot of things that I really can learn from. This episode is a little bit shorter, but we did have a lot of side conversations that didn't go into the episode, and I learned so much from Boston, and I'm really grateful for our friendship, and I'm really grateful for this conversation that we had together. I hope that you're able to gain just as much inspiration and information from this podcast episode as I was during our little side conversations. So Boston and I met, probably 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, down at Snow College in Ephraim, Utah. And I believe we met at a Solid Rock Cafe event, and I just hit it off with him right away, and we became friends, and we've kind of stayed in touch throughout the years. And I was so excited when he wanted to come on the podcast because I know that he has a lot to offer in the creative space. So he has done everything from improv to screenplay writing to comedy to serious plays and just everything in between. So I really think that you're going to enjoy this episode, even if you know nothing about theater. It's always just fun to get to know about people's lives and where they came from and what they're interested in. So with all that being said, I hope that you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed talking to Boston, and I appreciate each of you for being here, and I hope that you enjoy this shorter than normal episode because I know that I for sure did. One last thing before we get started, just like Brock's episode 2 weeks ago, this episode was filmed a long time ago, many moons, many months ago, and we are just now getting this uploaded, which is a bummer and is totally on me. So you might hear at the very end of this episode that Boston is in a play that was supposed to be going on in April. That has already passed, but there are so many more things coming up with that theater production company that he was talking about, and all of the links are in the description. And he is in so many more upcoming things. So if you want to get a glimpse of something that he's in, feel free to look down in the description at the Off-Broadway Theater, and you can find all of the information there for things that he will be in upcoming, as well as things that he's already been in. And finally, you will notice if you're watching on YouTube that there is no video for this as well. Just as with Brock's episode, there is something funky that happened with the Zoom, and I'm not able to recover the video, but the audio is great, and he recorded audio on his end too, so the audio should be just fine for this episode. Unfortunately, though, there is no video, so I apologize for that. Hopefully, I will be able to recover the upcoming episodes' videos. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's enjoy this episode together. Grab a cup of coffee, buckle in your seatbelt, grab your tea, whatever you're ending up doing while you're listening to this. I hope that you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Everybody, welcome Boston to the podcast. Boston, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to dive into this with you.
Glad to be here.
Well, I guess I should mention for everybody listening and watching before we get into this, I had recorded a podcast with Boston in 2020, right before that random hiatus that Passions Over Pancakes took. And it was honestly one of my favorite
podcast episodes, and it just never got uploaded. And so we are here again to talk again about theater, writing, comedy, everything in between. And it's going to be bigger and better than ever, because as we were talking before the podcast, and we were both saying we are just totally different people now. And watching him from afar, I feel like both of us have grown into the people that we are supposed to be. So I'm super, super excited to get into this and see everything that has changed. Not that you guys would know what has changed, but I'll know. So it'll be my little secret. But it's just going to be a great episode. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into talking about theater. So Austin, tell me a little bit about what got you into theater in the first place. How long have you been doing theater? Kind of what's the whole shindig? What's your love for theater?
So it's kind of an interesting story about how I got into theater. When I was in elementary school, there were some friends of mine, these girls, during recess, they one day were just like, we're going to put on a show. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'll come watch it. So they put on a show at the playground. I'm pretty sure I was the only audience member there. But I was like, this is really cool. I want to do this. I want to put on my own show. So I would get some friends together, and like we would start putting stuff. None of it ever was performed, and it was just like we just play around with characters and stuff. But that was kind of my first experience with theater and with performing. And I was like, Mom, I want to be signed up for acting classes. And so she's like, okay, cool, we'll sign you up for acting classes. We did some acting exercises and everything. I remember on the first day I was like, so we gonna perform this? We gonna perform what we're doing? And they're like, no, it's just an exercise. Just an exercise, Boston. We don't get to perform this until like the very, very end. So I don't even remember how long that lasted. Like a year maybe. And then at the end of the year we did a show called The Grasshopper and the Ants. If I recall, I was one of the ants.
Sounds very kid-friendly.
Yes, yeah. It was a fun time. It was a fun time doing that. And then that was kind of my first experience with theater was doing that. And then I think after that year I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with theater for a second. I'm done with acting. I mean, it's fun, but I'm just going to chill. So, as an elementary schooler says in that vernacular. So years went by. We moved. This is all when I was growing up in Texas, and then we moved to Utah. I went to elementary school, and then I went to middle school, and so they were doing a murder mystery play the semester before, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool, but I don't have time for that, so I skipped out on that. And then later in the semester, they were doing the school musical, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and my music teacher was like, you should sign up for this, and I was like, okay, cool, but the auditions came around, and I didn't think I was ready. So I didn't end up doing that. I prepared Do Re Mi from Sound of Music, but then I got nervous and didn't sign up for an audition. So a few days later, my music teacher was like, hey, you should come to callbacks because we still need guys. And so I was like, okay, cool. I didn't know what a callback was. For those who don't know what a callback is, it's the second round of auditions. It's like you audition, you do your piece for the director, and then if they like you or if they want to see you for something specific, they call you back they call you back as a specific character. So I had skipped the audition. I had skipped step one and I went straight to callbacks, which doesn't happen normally.
You're just that good.
But I guess. I don't know.
So, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to sing Do Re Mi. I was ready to go, and then I didn't sing Do Re Mi, and I was like, is this what auditions are? Did I even need to have this song memorized or anything? And then through some stroke of luck, I got the part of Linus in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and that was kind of my first real play. Grasshopper and the Ants was its own thing entirely. But my first real play was You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And it was so fun. It was like there was 6 of us kids in it, and we were kind of a tight-knit group. And I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons I do theater, is because I meet people, and I get to know people, and I make friends from that. And that was my first experience with that. And then the next year I did Seussical Junior. I played a Wickersham monkey. They were like, there were 3 of us, but they were like, we got the 3 nicest kids in school to play 3 of the meanest kids in the jungle. So we did Seussical Junior, and that was that was fun, and it just kept going from there. Like every production I was in, I tried out for, and I somehow made it in every time. Because at that point, it was just kind of a hobby. It was like just something I did for fun after school. But I remember the point. I remember the specific point when I was like, I want to do this for a living. I want to actually be an actor. James Corden hosted the 2016 Tony Awards, and he did some opening number that was like, it was anyone can do theater. It's a place of anyone, any shapes and sizes, color, anyone can do theater. And I was like, that's amazing. I don't know what it was about that, but just I was so inspired that I was like, I need to do this. I mean, I need to get into theater and actually pursue it. So I graduated like 2 years later. I was like, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to do theater. My senior year of high school, it kind of took a little bit of a turn, a little bit of a change. We were doing a 10-minute play festival. I wrote a little 10-minute play about a playwright who he sets up a competition for people to meet him, spend 10 minutes with him, but then he doesn't think anybody was actually going to show up and win. So he's like, okay, I'll just write a play for you guys, and I'll pull 2 people from the audience to act it out. Of course, the people were planted. There wasn't actually people from the audience pulled up, but everyone loved it. Just the way everyone thought it was hilarious. And that was like one of my first experiences of writing something that people liked. I still wanted to do acting, but that was kind of the moment when I was like, I want to pursue writing as well. I'd love to write and act in what I write. And then I went to Snow College and I studied theater for 2 years. I mean, that kind of brings us to now. After 2 years, I graduated with my associates in theater. For like a couple months, maybe a year after that, I was kind of burned out on theater. I had done so much of it. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do theater. And then I saw this audition on Facebook for a group called the Off-Broadway Theater. They were doing a show called The Littlest Mermaid. The Off-Broadway Theater is based in Draper. They used to be based in Salt Lake City. So they moved to Draper, to the Draper Historic Theater in Draper, Utah. And I saw a post on Facebook. They were like, we're doing a parody of The Little Mermaid called The Littlest Mermaid. I was like, this just looks like a lot of fun. This looks like a lot of fun, just doing a parody of a show and having a good time. And so I auditioned for it. It was a video audition. I sent it in. I was like, this is the worst audition I've ever done. So I was just like, I'm not getting in this show. But through some stroke of luck, which is just kind of a theme, I guess, for me, is just I made it in the show. They cast me as the crab character, who we named Crabsworth in the original movie, Sebastian. And it was just a lot of fun just making people laugh. My freshman year of college, I played a character named Elbow in William Shakespeare's Measure for Measure. That part was, I was really able to let loose and just make people laugh. And I realized then that that's kind of my life calling, is just to make people laugh, to do what I can to make the world a better place, because the world's so depressing. And I think we need a laugh. We need a laugh here and there. And I think with the Off-Broadway Theater, I've been able to sort of harness that and be able to, through comedy, help people have a brighter day. And I'm still working with them. I'm writing a show for them, but I don't think I can say much more than that. I'm writing my own parody for them. Whether or not it'll happen, I don't know. I guess it's up to the board to decide.
For sure. Well, let's dive into that. Let's dive into screenplay, because I know that you even mentioned it before. In your senior year, you wrote that play, and I know that you've had a lot of different projects throughout the years of writing things. So let's dive into what that looks like for you. I'm really curious as to what your creative process looks like. So tell me, kind of from beginning to end, what it looks like for you to get an idea and then flesh out that idea and then put it onto paper. What does that look like for you?
I mean, it's not really a process. I don't know. I don't like getting asked this question, because it's like, I don't know. I just sit down and write. I mean, that's kind of pretty much it. There's more planning involved than there used to be. I wrote a play. I started writing it my senior year of high school. It got a staged reading at Snow College. But for that, it was like, I'm just going to sit down and just write what comes to me. But since working on this play for the Off-Broadway Theater, I've seen that there kind of needs to be more of a planning process. sit down and like, even if it's just like, this is what happens in this scene, this is what happens in this scene, sort of getting a story from beginning to end, because the story is essentially what is the most important part. And I can't believe it took me this long to realize that. Mel Brooks is like a very good example of like, you just kind of put jokes in and see what sticks, and like just throw stuff at the wall. And if something funny doesn't work, there's another joke coming like 10 seconds later. And it's like, just keep doing what's funny, but you also need to do what's funny to you.
Very true. And I think that's so valuable to say, because if you're not staying true to what makes you laugh and what makes you funny to yourself, then other people aren't going to think you're funny. Even if you do put a joke in there that you think won't land, it's not going to land. You know, like you have to 100% believe that that is the funniest thing you've ever put out. Otherwise, it's not going to land and it's not going to work. And then you're going to be bummed that you didn't think of something else, or that you did put out what you knew wasn't 100% the best that you could have done. Okay, let's mesh the idea of comedy and screenplay writing in your creative process. So you at heart are a comedian. When I first met you, I knew from the very get-go, like that's just who you are. You're a comedian. And you do so much with that in your everyday life and on social media and through your work and everything that you do creatively. Do you ever get burnt out on being like the funny guy?
Not really. I mean, there's some times when I'm like, there's deeper stuff I can do. I'm working on on writing some comedy music, but every now and then I'm like maybe there's like more here than just the laughs. I mean, you can mesh comedy with really anything, and I think, I mean, you can make a dramatic play that's funny, and I think even then it'll make it hit. That'll probably make it hit even harder. You're laughing and you're crying at the same time. I don't know.
That's true. That's a really good point. And I like that you brought that up, because I think so many times you go to a movie or you see a movie on Netflix or whatever, and it's labeled as something specific. And like if it's a drama, or I'm thinking specifically of Spider-Man, the newest Spider-Man movie. I went and saw that in theaters with my husband, and I don't know anything about the Marvel universe. We just went to it because he was obsessed and he was so excited about it. But I was sitting there like, I hope this movie makes sense to me. And it was so powerful. No spoilers here if anybody hasn't seen it, but like, you've had a month, come on, get with it. It's a great movie, and it was so dramatic the whole time and so like gripping, but they threw in so much comedy that it offset it, and it didn't make it a comedy movie, but it really and it didn't lighten the mood, but it definitely gave it a sweet taste with all of the tears and the laughter and the gripping your husband's hand because you're so nervous of what's going to happen next type of thing, you know? And so comedy is so important. And I love so much that like you are genuinely one of the funniest people I know, just from what I see on Facebook and just what I see on social media, of course. And it's true, but like, that doesn't define you, you know? And I really love that you're able to sprinkle that in, but that's not everything that you are all of the time. You feel?
I was going to say one of my favorite examples of how like you need comedy to go along with the drama. Look at a musical like Les Miserables. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all. You have all of this like horrible stuff happening, all these people dying and everything, and then you have Master of the House that comes in. It's like a really funny song. I mean, you need a moment to breathe, and like there's the drama, but you also need to balance it out. It makes it, I mean, not as unbearable, I guess. I don't know.
So true. And that's such a great parallel to life too, because we need the laughs, we need the break in our day in the midst of a crazy world, in the midst of this crazy pandemic that's happening, in the midst of family things, school things, all the stressors of life. We do need a second just to sit and breathe and laugh, because that laughter truly is the best medicine. And so getting a second to be able to do that is so important. And we need people who are willing to do that. Okay, well, that brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you earlier, but I think it might fit pretty well here. I think, kind of speaking to what you were just talking about, I think there is sometimes a war between different genres of theater. And also at the same time, I think there's a war between different communities of theater. And I think so often that war, so to speak, is brought on by the fans and the people who are so in love with the theater and the plays and the movies that these actors are portraying. So with all that being said, tell me about the community aspect of theater. You had spoken a little bit about that tight-knit community in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. As you've progressed in the theater world and gotten more than just a toe dipped into that whole arena of theater, how has the community changed you?
I feel like I can be more of myself around my fellow actors. I've been able to like be more of an idiot. I mean, for lack of a better term, not like really stupid, but not afraid to make a fool out of myself. If that makes sense. Yes, you're gonna have those people with huge egos, and those people can get out of here. But like, there's no room for an ego in the theater. There really isn't. You leave your ego at the door. Something I learned in high school. The theater community is one of the most accepting groups I've been a part of. It's like, yes, we have our drama, but like, I can be myself. I don't have to be afraid to be myself.
I love that too, because it's so comforting to see people who are living their dream in the theater world, but also are able to be so much of themselves. Because I think so often in this rat race of a world that we're in right now, you lose yourself to your dream. But in theater, it doesn't seem like you lose yourself to your dream. It seems like your dream and your life can coexist in a way. And theater isn't who you are, it's just what you do. I find that so cool, honestly, just because it's not something that's so overtaking and enveloping to the individual, unlike so many other things like people's jobs and people's families and all that stuff can just become who they are. But it's cool, like you can just be yourself, and everybody needs that community, you know.
It's ironic that it's the community where you're playing another character and not being yourself, where you can be yourself.
So speaking of having your life be separate from your work and who you are and being accepted in the community of theater and all that, do you think, and I don't know what your answer is going to be to this, but I'm just so curious, do you think that anybody can do theater well? Like anybody walking off the street, do you think that they would be able to learn theater well? Or do you think it takes a very specific person to have that almost innately in them to be able to do theater well?
I think anyone can do theater. I think it takes someone who's willing to put in the time and the effort to be able to learn. I mean, yes, there is some amount of talent involved, but like, I mean, it's like kind of the story of the tortoise and the hare. The hare was very, very gifted and very fast. He knew he was like, I'm gonna win this race. And you have the tortoise who was slow and was a little bit more humble about it. The hare was like, I'm way ahead of him. I don't need to put in any work to this. I'm just gonna take a nap. And it was the tortoise that won the race. I think that kind of applies here. You're willing to put in the work and the time. I mean, yes, you're behind, but you can catch up to people if you're willing to put in the work and the time and the dedication to be able to master this craft. I think anyone can. I have a friend who I met at Snow College. She only had a very like small amount of experience with theater, but she's one of like the hardest working people I know. She didn't do any theater in high school, as far as I'm aware. She was a sports person, but she put all this time and energy and effort into learning acting and learning directing, and she's like one of the most talented people I know in the field of theater. I imagine she knows more about theater than I do. And I've been doing it for like years and years. And so it's I think anyone can do it. It's just what you're willing to put into it.
I love that answer so much. And I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that, but I'm really grateful that you went where you went with that. There's an idea floating around that I love so much. And I don't know who originally said it, but if you are wanting to do something, in this case, theater, if you're wanting to do theater and you're already 26 years old, but you think, well, by the time I actually get good at it, what's it going to be 4 years down the road? That's too much time to put into it. I'm already 26. I'm going to be 30 by the time that 4-year commitment is up, but you're going to be 30 by the time that you get to those 4 years anyway. So you might as well spend it doing something that you love and work absolutely hard at it and work your butt off trying to get to where you want to be, because no matter what, you're going to be 30 in those 4 years. So are you going to be 30 and stay in the same place that you are at 26? Or are you going to be 30 and getting a whole new world wrapped around you, you know? Yeah. I love,
totally.
I'm really grateful you said what you did there, because that's super encouraging, I think, to anybody. And I think that pertains to really anything, any type of creativity, any type of job, anything that people want to get into. What you said totally applies to everything. So I'm really grateful that you said what you said there. I don't think it has necessarily everything to do with what we're talking about now, but I'm just curious, with things that you put out, whether it's podcasts or YouTube videos or theater or your screenplays, are you ever 100% satisfied with what you put out? And in conjunction with that question, do you think that people who do create things should be 100% satisfied with what they put out? Or do you think that there should always be a lingering, oh, I could have done better, to be able to push them on to something else?
There's a saying, and I'm probably paraphrasing it, but it's the painting is never finished, it's merely abandoned. I don't think a project will ever be 100% finished. I think there is always something you can improve, and I think there's always something that you can do better. It just gets to the point where you can't work on this forever. There is a point when you either give up or you just let people see what you've done. I don't think I will ever be satisfied with anything I do. I look at old things I've done and I'm like, oh, I could have done this better, and maybe I'll revisit them someday. There is a chance that you can work on it again, but if there's a way you can be 100% satisfied, I say take it. But I don't think that's possible for me anyway.
I think I do want to say one thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Piece of advice for anyone getting into theater. I think don't be afraid to make a fool of yourself on stage. Don't be. I think some of the most fun I've had on stage is when I could just be loud and obnoxious and just be an absolute fool. I think don't be afraid to just put your ego and your self-image out the door. Leave it and just have fun. I mean, I realized a long time ago, if it's not fun for you, then you shouldn't be doing it. If I'm gonna have more fun doing a comedy than a drama, I'm gonna choose the comedy. Or if I'm gonna have more fun doing a drama, I'm gonna choose the drama. It's like do what's fun for you and do what you love. Don't do what you hate, I guess is what I'm saying. That's my advice. Have fun. Theater's fun. Performing is fun. Yeah. That's my advice.
And that's such great advice for people in theater and people just in any passion too. But I love that. Don't do what you hate. I really, really love that. And I'm considering putting that on a t-shirt.
I see.
Just kidding.
There's so much there. There's so much there that you can offer if you just let yourself offer it.
So true. So true. And I appreciate actors and actresses who do let themselves go, and not let themselves go, but let themselves be a little bit silly and crazy, more crazy and silly than they normally are in an acting setting. For those who are listening, Boston and I met at Snow College, which I think has been mentioned in this podcast. He was in a little group called Let Them Improvise, or LTI, and they would perform in the Black Box Theater. And I remember looking forward to it every single time that they would have an improvising night. It would just be everybody in our chairs waiting for it to start, and you could just feel the excitement because you knew that it was going to be the best night of your week. And those were honestly some of my favorite memories at Snow College. I laughed until I cried. I think I peed my pants once. Like, it was just so exciting. And I know for a fact that if any of those people on that team had held back even just a percentage, it would not have been the same, and it would not have been as funny, and it would not have been as enjoyable as an audience member, and I'm sure as a performer too. So just to echo that advice as an audience member, just really go for it. You know, I think Boston, you said it perfectly. Just don't do what you hate and do something that you absolutely love, and do it 1000%, and you're gonna have the best time.
One of the things I love about improv, and I think is cool about it, is there's no time to think. You just say what you need to say. Like, obviously don't be offensive, don't be like don't be a jerk to the point where it makes people uncomfortable, but like there's no time to think about not being a fool. There's just, you just go in and you just say what comes out, and like I think that's really fun.
Yeah, and it's enjoyable for y'all as the performers, and it's enjoyable for the audience members, which at some point is what theater is about, for sure.
Cool.
I love it.
Lightning round.
Let's get into the lightning round. Okay, so for people who have been listening and watching Passions Over Pancakes, you will not recognize what the lightning round is. This is a brand new thing that we are starting right now. as we are speaking. And it's just a bunch of quick questions with quick answers. Nothing too crazy, nothing too serious. This is not an original idea. I'm sure that a billion other podcasts out there have done a lightning round, but we're going to be doing a lightning round. So these are all questions pertaining to what we have talked about a little bit throughout this podcast, but they pertain to the ideas of theater and screenwriting and all that stuff. So let's get started. Drum roll, please. Okay, Boston, what is your favorite movie and why?
I don't believe in having one favorite movie. I have like 5. So I love Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, Dumb and Dumber, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and there was one other, but I don't remember it. Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Those are like my top 5.
Next question. What is your favorite Broadway play and why?
I love The Music Man. That is my favorite musical. My favorite play is The Play That Goes Wrong. Because it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. My favorite musical is The Music Man. I was in it. My church did it my 8th grade year. And I was just in it as a townsperson. But it was like, it was such a great experience being in that play. And so I don't know why that musical out of all the musicals I've done has stuck out so much to me. But I love that musical. The Music Man is my favorite. Harold Hill is one of my dream roles.
That's awesome. How cool. My high school did that play my sophomore or junior year. And there was one line, and I can't remember what it was, but there was one line that was, it was what do you talk? For some reason, that just, I can't for some,
what do you talk? What do you talk? What do you talk? You can talk. You can talk all you want to, but it's different than it was. No, it ain't, but you gotta know the territory.
Oh my gosh. Yes, but it was just that Woody talk for everybody. Yeah. So I played in Pitt. So I was playing the flute and the saxophone, and every time that line would come on, everybody would kind of turn to me and laugh because it was just the actor who did it so well that it was so obnoxious. And I just couldn't. I could not. It made me so like it just boiled my blood every time, which was awesome. And it made it so much better for I just think it made the viewing experience so much better because that was like a common theme amongst everybody who saw the play. That was just like, he was so good. It was obnoxious. anyways, yes, that is a fantastic
I love
play.
that musical.
What is your favorite show to binge watch and why?
I just recently watched a show called Good Omens. I read the book. I was like, I'm going to read the book that it's based on by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. It's one of the best books I've ever read, and I 100% recommend it. It's also really funny. It's about an angel and a demon trying to stop Armageddon. It's really funny. It's a good satire on like the end of days stories we hear. There's a show on Amazon Prime that's based on the book. Stars David Tennant and Michael Sheen, and it is just as good as the book. It actually improves on it, I think. But I read the book. It's a great book. It's a great show. I went on a trip and I watched it pretty much the entire way home. It's like 6 or 7 episodes, I think. So it's not that long, but that's one of my recent favorites.
Sweet. Well, I'll have to look into that. Sweet. Okay. All right. Next question is, who is your favorite actor and who is your favorite actress?
I don't think I have too many favorite actors or actresses. I was told once after a show that they loved my Chris Farley, former Saturday Night Live cast member. And I said I wasn't going for Chris Farley, but thanks anyway. I mean, I love Chris Farley. He's like one of my inspirations, and he's great. He was a great actor, but it wasn't what I had in mind. So I guess probably he's up there. I'm a fan of Chris Pratt. I know he kind of gets a bad rap these days, but I think he's funny.
Yes, Chris Pratt is my favorite Chris, honestly. My husband and I have been going to the Marvel movies because it was either that or Star Wars, and I was like, I feel like the Marvel movies would be better. And we had just seen Spider-Man, and I was like, I kind of want to understand what's going on. So we've been going to the Marvel movies, and literally last night we watched Guardians of the Galaxy, and I love Chris Pratt. He is by far one of my favorite people on planet Earth, and I really, really love him as an actor. So go Pratt. Last and final question. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, Boston. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to get into the creative world or the acting world or the screenwriting world, any creative worlds that you're in? What advice would you give to them if they are afraid to get into that world for fear of failure, or they don't have any support around them?
I think just do it. The worst that can happen is that it doesn't happen. The worst that can happen is that it doesn't come to be. I mean, I don't think anyone got anywhere from not doing something. I'd say just do it. Yeah. I mean, what have you got to lose? I'm sure that's easier said than done, and I'm sure some people have a lot to lose. When Angela Weber was writing Cats, he took out a mortgage on his home, so he had a lot to lose. But that musical ended up being a success for some reason. Yeah, just do it. Have a good time doing it.
I love that. And I think that's such simple but such fantastic advice that I think everybody needs to hear, and everybody needs that push every once in a while of just do it. You're right. What do you have to lose? Unless you have a lot to lose, in which case think about it. But
Yes.
if you have time, if you're young, even if you're not young, whatever you consider to be young, just do it. Kind of like what you were kind of talking about earlier of in 3 or 4 years, you're going to be 3 or 4 years older anyways. Just do something you love. Don't do what you hate. So yeah, sweet. Okay. Well, Boston, where can people find you on the interwebs?
So I'm on Twitter at Bostonian Posts. I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/YourBuddyBoston. I just recently passed 100 subscribers, so now I'm able to have a custom URL. You can find me on TikTok at YourBuddyBoston. I'm part of a comedy music band called Duck. It's all lowercase with an exclamation point. We're kind of hard to find because that's actually a generic name, and we didn't take that into account when we named the band. But if you search Duck, our latest song is called Winged Brontosaur. It's about a brontosaur with wings learning to be himself. Sort of a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer sort of story. You can find us on pretty much any music streaming platforms. We're on Bandcamp, Apple Music, Spotify, pretty much anywhere. You can find me at the Off-Broadway Theater in Draper, Utah. I'm going to be in the Drowsy Chaperone here in April, playing George, the best man George. Honored to be doing what a best man ought. It's not a parody like the others are, but I think it'll still be fun.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, everything and more will be linked below. Everything that we've kind of talked about in this episode will be linked down below, and everywhere that you can find Boston, except for his home address, will be linked down below as well. Perfect. Okay. Well, Boston, thank you again for joining me on this episode. I really enjoyed being able to talk to you and learn about your creative process and really get to know who you are as a creative a little bit better. And I'm sure that everybody else enjoyed it as well. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, y'all, you know the drill. Rate, review, subscribe, all the things. If you have a second, feel free to do those down below in either YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and we will see you 2 weeks from today.